It was a gloomy morning in London, and Emma wandered into her favorite bookstore, seeking solace among the shelves of forgotten stories. The shop was quiet, save for the faint sound of pages turning and the occasional soft chatter of other customers. As Emma traced her fingers along the spines of old books, her hand paused on a peculiar one. It was a small leather-bound diary, its edges frayed and its cover embossed with golden letters that had faded with time. Curious, she opened it. The handwriting inside was elegant but urgent, as though the writer had poured their heart onto the pages. Emma read a few lines and felt her heart skip a beat. The entries were intimate, filled with emotions and declarations of love, but not to her. The name Sophie appeared repeatedly, written with an almost reverent tone. Confusion mixed with a pang of unease as Emma realized this was William's handwriting. Clutching the diary tightly, Emma left the bookstore in a daze. Questions swirled in her mind as she walked home. Who is Sophie? Why does William still have this? And why has he never mentioned it before? Emma walked into the house, her grip still tight on the diary. The usual comfort of home felt strangely distant. William sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, his casual demeanor a stark contrast to the storm brewing in Emma's mind. "William," she began, her voice steady but tinged with tension, "I found something today." She placed the diary on the coffee table between them. William glanced at it, then back at her. "What's this?" he asked, his tone light but his eyes betraying a flicker of recognition. "You tell me," Emma replied, crossing her arms. "I found it in a bookstore. It's yours, isn't it?" William picked up the diary, turning it over in his hands. "Oh, this," he said with a forced chuckle. "It's nothing, Emma, just an old journal. I haven't seen it in years." Emma's eyes narrowed. "Nothing? William, the name Sophie is all over it. Who is she?" He hesitated, his fingers tightening around the diary. "She's no one. Just someone I knew a long time ago. It doesn't mean anything." But Emma wasn't convinced. "If it's nothing, why do you still have it? And why haven't you ever mentioned her?" William looked away, his usual confidence replaced by a visible discomfort. "Emma, it's not what you think. Let's not make this into something bigger than it is." But for Emma, it already was. The conversation with William left Emma restless. That night, as he slept soundly beside her, she stared at the ceiling, replaying every word he had said. The diary was tucked away in her drawer, but the name Sophie echoed in her mind. The next morning, after William left for work, Emma retrieved the diary. Sitting by the kitchen table, she began to examine it more closely. The handwriting, unmistakably his, described moments of passion and longing. One entry caught her attention. "Sophie understands me in a way no one else ever has. She's the light in my darkest moments." Emma felt her stomach churn. It wasn't just an old memory, it sounded alive, recent. Determined to uncover more, she decided to search William's home office. The room was meticulously organized, but Emma knew where William often kept personal things. In the bottom drawer of his desk, tucked beneath some old documents, she found a small envelope. Inside was a photograph of a young woman with striking features and a warm smile. On the back of the photo, in William's handwriting, were the words, "Sophie, Florence, 2017. Emma's hands trembled. This wasn't a fleeting memory from long ago. It was far more recent than she had imagined. When William returned home that evening, Emma was waiting in the living room, the diary and photo placed deliberately on the coffee table. The air between them was thick with unspoken tension. "William," Emma began, her voice steady but icy, "we need to talk." He glanced at the table and his face paled. "Emma, I can explain," he said, his voice faltering. "Then start explaining," she said, crossing her arms. "Who is Sophie? And why do you still have this photo and diary?" William sighed, running a hand through his hair. He sat down heavily, avoiding her gaze. "Sophie was someone I met before we got married," he admitted. "We were together for a while, but it didn't work out. She moved away, and that was the end of it, or so I thought." "Or so you thought?" Emma pressed, her tone sharp. He nodded, his hands clasped tightly. "When we were in Florence a few years ago, I ran into her. It wasn't planned, Emma, I swear. We talked, and I guess it stirred up old feelings. But nothing happened beyond that." Emma's jaw tightened. "Then, why keep the diary? Why keep her photo?" William hesitated, then said quietly, "I didn't want to forget her. But I swear, Emma, you're the one I chose. You're my wife." His words hung in the air, but they did little to ease the ache growing in Emma's chest. Emma barely slept that night. William's words echoed in her mind, but something still didn't feel right. The next morning, as he left for work, Emma resolved to search for more answers. She opened his laptop, hesitant but determined. Searching through his emails, she found a folder labeled Personal. Inside were messages exchanged with Sophie. The most recent one, dated just a month ago, read, "William, it was good to hear from you again. I hope we can meet soon and talk in person. There's so much left unsaid." Emma's heart sank. Her worst fears were confirmed. This wasn't just a relic of the past. Sophie wasn't gone from William's life. She was still very much present. That evening, when William returned home, Emma confronted him with the email. "You said it was over. You said nothing happened." William's face fell. "Emma, I was trying to end things. I needed closure. That's why I contacted her. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to hurt you." "Hurt me?" Emma's voice cracked with anger and disbelief. "Do you realize what you've done? How can I ever trust you again?" William reached for her hand, but Emma pulled away. "Please, Emma, I never meant for it to go this far. I love you. That's the truth." But to Emma, the truth felt more like a betrayal than a reassurance. The weight of the revelations pressed down on Emma like an anchor. She spent the night sitting by the window, watching the city lights flicker against the darkness. Every memory of her life with William seemed tainted now, shadowed by questions she didn't know how to answer. By morning, she had made a decision. As William stirred awake, Emma was already packing a small bag. "Emma, what are you doing?" he asked, his voice thick with panic. She turned to face him, her expression a mixture of heartbreak and resolve. "I need time, William, time to think. Time to figure out if we can be fixed." His face crumpled. "Please, Emma, don't go. Let's talk this through." "We've talked, William," she said, her voice soft but firm. "But trust isn't something you can rebuild with words. I need to decide if I can believe you again." She walked to the door, pausing only to take one last look at him. "I love you, William, but right now that's not enough." As the door closed behind her, Emma felt the cool morning air hit her face. For the first time in days, she breathed deeply. Her future was uncertain, but for now, she needed to rediscover herself before deciding if William still had a place in her life. Today you learned how to ask questions in English in a simple and practical way, as well as exploring a story full of emotion. Remember, every word you learn is a step towards better communication. Keep practicing. If you liked this story, subscribe to the channel and follow our next adventures in English.